Hi, everybody. It's been a very sad and difficult day. Um, First and foremost, of course, for the family of Jewish mega philanthropist Sheldon Adelson, and my condolences, of course, to his wife and soulmate, Dr. Min, to his children and his family. It's just a tragic day, but my condolences also to the Jewish people. We lost the world's foremost Jewish philanthropist today. It's just kind of hard to believe, and he was an amazing friend to me and my family and the World Values Network, where he spoke many times. We've posted some of the pictures today. I think we've also posted, I think our staff has also posted um, some of the videos of the speeches that Sheldon gave for us, the interviews that he conducted with me. I have to say that his passing has hit me extremely hard. So rather than just talk about Sheldon, which, you know, I'll try to do over the next few days, God willing, I actually wrote a tribute that's being published, and I'm going to read it to you, albeit, a bit more human than just some text. I'm going to add my own life to the words that I just wrote, but here it is, and I greatly welcome and respect your comments. This is the tribute I wrote to Sheldon Adelson. Like I said, you guys know me. I'm an extemporaneous speaker. I love oratory. Especially I love public oratory. Not a lot of which is going on during the coronavirus. But when it comes to tributes like this, when I gave the eulogy at my father's funeral on the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem, where Sheldon will himself be buried, Mount of Olives in Jerusalem, Judaism's most sacred cemetery. I read the eulogy I wrote for my father, and I wrote it on the plane on the way to Israel. And I've written this for Sheldon. I want to read what I wrote. It's called Adelson, Jewish Giant, American Colossus. There was rarely a time when I saw Sheldon Adelson that I did not kiss him on the cheek in greeting, as he did the same in return. So I would see Sheldon, kiss him on the cheek and say hello, and he'd always kiss me back, always. There was rarely a time when I greeted him with my wife Debbie that he did not tease her in some fashion as to the whereabouts of our 9 children. He was always teasing Debbie. And there was never a time when I called him every Friday to wish him a Shabbat Shalom, a good Shabbos, that he did not take the call, however busy, and warmly return the greeting. Because that was Sheldon Adelson. Yes, corporate titan. Yes, billionaire businessman. Indeed, the world's foremost Jewish philanthropist, but through and through, the warmest man with the kindest heart. Hearing the news today that Sheldon Adelson had passed away, even while I knew that he had been ill, was devastating and shocking. How could a man who was larger than life have been snatched away by death? How could anything have conquered Sheldon Adelson, a living legend? And as the day progressed, I grew increasingly despondent and increasingly morose, increasingly depressed. And my wife, Debbie, summed up our feelings best. She said to me, I can't believe that we're never going to see Sheldon again. And neither can I. I can't believe it either. Sheldon Adelson, my friends, was an American colossus, a visionary who transformed Las Vegas and Macau into some of the most visited places on earth. Together with his wife, Miri, he envisioned the recreation of the world's most serene city, Venice, right in the sands of the Nevada desert, or some of you would say the Nevada desert. He dreamed big for Israel, believing that the United States could and should recognize the tiny desert nation as its most important ally. And by the time of his death, today at the age of 87, he had realized his dream. Only a Sheldon Adelson could have foreseen Israel rising as a global technological and intelligence superpower, becoming the most dispensable global friend of the United States of America. And Sheldon was so generous. He was a supernova of Jewish giving, earning his place among history's most legendary Jewish philanthropists, like the Rothschilds and the Montefiore's. As a birthday gift a few years back, Debbie and I once bought him a silver tzedakah box, a pushka, a charity box. And as he opened the gift, Sheldon told Debbie and me that when he was a child, his father, a poor Boston taxi driver, used to come home at night and he would put coins into the JNF pushka, the JNF charity box that was on their table. And Sheldon asked him, "Dad, what are you doing?" So his father said, what am I doing? I'm giving money to the poor. "But we're poor," Sheldon said. "They were a very poor family." And his father replied, "Yes, but there is always someone poor." And the lesson stuck with Sheldon. By the time Sheldon's genius and industriousness led him to create the integrated resorts industry, something he created, synthesizing entertainment, exhibition, and convention facilities. He was giving billions of dollars to causes of every stripe, medical research and hospitals, clinics fighting drug addiction, America's wounded warriors, Holocaust education and memory, and of course, organizations dedicated to protecting his beloved Israel. To Birthright Israel alone, he contributed, together with Miri, nearly $500 million, affording young Jews the world over the privilege that his own father did not have the funds, the money to realize, namely a chance to see the promised land. To the extent that Sheldon gained huge influence as America's most generous political benefactor, he leveraged that influence to promote American interests and protect the Jewish people. Although Miri, his wife, was born in Israel, her mother's family had largely been annihilated in Poland during the Holocaust. And Sheldon never forgot the lesson. The Jews must be strong if they are to survive and flourish. All of this is already quite well known about the public Sheldon Adelson, including the moving story he told about how he had worn his late father's shoes upon his own first visit to Israel, so that an impoverished taxi driver who never had the financial resources to witness the Jewish state could at least have his shoes trod where the patriarchs had walked. But what is not well known, and what has impressed me the most, was the private Sheldon Adelson, the man whom, whenever I traveled with him, was always holding his wife Miri's hand. The tycoon who would interrupt meetings to call Miri and sing romantic tunes. The business magnate whose lock screen on his phone was of his two young sons, Adam and Matan, at so tender an age. I watched how in meetings, however critical, he would never fail to take his sons' and daughters' phone calls. He showed his children so much love. Sheldon Adelson was above all else a family man who adored his wife and his children like few I have witnessed. And he was a loyal and loving friend to me and countless others. Once, after a professional setback, when I was licking my wounds and feeling pretty low, Sheldon called me and he said to me, "Shmuley, friendship is all about shared values. You and I will always be friends because we believe in important things." I loved when he said that. It made me feel like, so maybe I do matter after all. Some billionaires only have billionaire friends. But at Sheldon's birthday parties and family celebrations, the wealthy guests were the exception rather than the rule. He surrounded himself with communal activists whose work he supported, doctors and nurses whose practices he funded, rabbis and teachers whose educational efforts he supported, and artists and musicians whose creativity he helped to realize. And always, always, there were his children's friends. He always had his children's friends around. He loved children. He loved the youth. He supported the youth. Look what he did for Birthright. My friends, I've worked as a rabbi for more than 30 years. 3 decades. Hard to believe. You see the gray. I've worked as a rabbi for 30 years, more than 30 years, but seldom have I met a man like Sheldon Adelson who oozed Jewish pride from every pore of his being. He was traditional rather than orthodox, sentimental about his faith rather than a strict adherent. And yet to Sheldon, Jewish pride was an uncompromising article of faith, an absolute religion. That was his religion, Jewish pride. You had to be a proud Jew. You had to fight for your people. Sometimes I would look at him in awe, wondering how could one man so devote himself to the protection and needs of his people? His office was a turnstile of world leaders seeking his wisdom and advice, and he was a Jewish light to the nations. Once, I walked alongside his wheelchair scooter as he departed his office toward a waiting car in the Venetian Hotel. He was flanked by security, as he whizzed through the Venetian lobby, and guests of the hotel stared on him in awe at seeing the legendary entrepreneur and businessman. To a humble rabbi like me, it was an awesome display of might and power. But to Sheldon, it was just another opportunity to arrive at his car and insist I get in with him to hitch a ride alongside. He was just so, you're so warm about things like that. Just really get it. And Miri, he found his perfect soulmate, someone equally motivated to protect Israel and the highest ideals of American love, for human rights abiding democracies and free societies. When Miri read in the New York Times a few years back of an Islamic couple in Afghanistan, whom the Times had dubbed the Afghani Romeo and Juliet, and were threatened with murder for dating outside their tribe, Miri undertook a years-long and successful effort to help save their lives and deliver them from danger. Sheldon watched his wife enraptured. My wife, he told an influential person on the other end of a phone line, whom he had called to enlist their help, is a hopeless romantic. We must save the couple's lives. It sickens me to see fools on the internet who are criticizing Sheldon in death for his political engagement, when those critics know nothing of how he lived to see Jerusalem recognized as Israel's eternal capital, how he despised Iran for their genocidal plans against his people, and how he pledged himself to a moral foreign policy opposing every American enemy who murdered our troops, in whose ranks he himself had once served. He was a veteran. His political contributions, which were still dwarfed by his philanthropy, were dedicated to upholding the America-Israel alliance and protecting innocent life, and of course ensuring that a second Holocaust would remain an absolute impossibility. It is a sign of what a special man Sheldon was that my children called me today, one after the other, to say how much they will miss him and how tenderly they remembered him. It is a great comfort to know that his wife, Dr. Miriam Adelson, whom everyone knows affectionately as Miri, his full partner in business and philanthropy, will continue their shared legacy as the greatest Jewish philanthropist of our times. 2 years ago, at his 85th birthday celebration in Nevada, or some of you would say Nevada, Sheldon arranged for his assembled friends to visit the Grand Canyon, a few hours' drive from his Las Vegas home. Little did we all realize how symbolic the visit would be just 2 years later. For Sheldon Adelson would leave a chasm just as large in the fabric of global Jewish living. That was Sheldon Adelson, American colossus, Jewish giant, and utterly irreplaceable. May Sheldon's memory be an eternal blessing, and may God comfort his wife, Miri, his children, and the entire nation of Israel. God bless you all, and God bless America, Israel, the family of Sheldon Adelson, and Sheldon's eternal memory. God bless you all.